In today's video, we're going to go over the product bundling strategy. We'll see what it's all about when it comes to pricing strategy. And no, it's not just about grouping a bunch of products together and selling them at a discounted price. And we'll see under which circumstances it leads to the highest revenue increases. Now, there are several reasons why you may want to offer bundles, but in today's video, we're going to focus on only one: how it can increase your sales through improved pricing. I don't know about you, but when I think of bundles, I always think of McDonald's menus. And I confess I haven't gone to McDonald's in years, but back when I was a teenager, I used to go there a lot with my friends. And I ate many pounds of McDonald's fries, which I don't even particularly like. And why? Well, it was such a great value for money. And that's the brilliancy of this strategy. It made me spend more money to buy something that I didn't want and made me feel great about it. I mean, I was getting such a great deal. So the question then is, can you implement something similar in your business? To try to answer that question, let's use an example. Let's imagine you're an online course creator specializing in marketing and content creation. And you have created 2 courses, one focusing on online marketing and another one on content writing. Now, could you combine those 2 courses in a way that would make your customers spend more than they would if left to their own devices? And could you convince them that they got a great deal in the process? Let's now assume that as part of your price optimization process, you have surveyed your audience, and based on the survey results and on your past experience, you have an idea of how many potential clients would buy at each price point. So, with all that data available now, you are trying to develop a pricing strategy to optimize your sales. So after you got the data back from the survey, you made an initial analysis and got to the conclusion that you have 4 market segments, each with 1,000 potential customers. 2 of these segments, 1 and 4, have a much higher willingness to pay for one of the courses than for the other. Interestingly, segment 1 puts a high value on a content writing course and a much lower value on an online marketing one, while segment 4 values an online marketing course much higher than a content writing one. Then, we have 2 intermediate segments. One is willing to pay more for a content writing course, the other for an online marketing one, but the difference in value between courses is not so high as in the case of segments 1 and 4. And this is a situation that begs for a bundle. We'll see why in a minute. But before we can do that, let's see how we would optimize the price of each course if we were to price them individually. So, what prices would result in higher sales without bundling? Let's start by optimizing the content writing course. Based on our initial analysis of the survey data, we got to the conclusion that segment 1 would be willing to pay up to $190 for the content writing course. Segment 2 would go up to $150, segment 3 $95, and segment 4 $35. So if we were to price the course at $190, only segment 1 clients would buy. The other 3 segments wouldn't buy the course because they would consider the price to be too high. In this case, we would have 1,000 potential students buying the course for $190, getting us a total revenue of $190,000. Now, if we price the course for $150, 2 segments would buy. Segment 1, who would buy up to $190, and segment 2, who would buy for $150. Obviously, those who would buy for $190 would also buy for $150. So we would have 2,000 potential students from segments 1 and 2 buying the course for $150 for a total revenue of $300,000. Similarly, if we'd price for $95, 3 segments would buy. We would have 3,000 students from segments 1, 2, and 3 buying the course for $95 for a total revenue of $285,000. And lastly, if we price the course for $35, all 4 segments would buy, getting us a total expected revenue of $35 times 4,000 potential students That is a total of $140,000. So from this preliminary analysis, we get to the conclusion that what seems to be the optimum price for the content writing course, if priced individually, would be $150. That would get us 2,000 students. And with that price, we could expect our revenue to get to $300,000. Now, if we follow the same analysis and rationale to analyze the online marketing course, we get to the conclusion that the optimum price for this course, if priced individually, would be $160. In that case, potential students from segments 3 and 4 would buy for a total of 2,000 students times $160, which would lead to an expected revenue of $320,000. So, summing up, if we were to price our courses individually, we would price the content writing course for $150, in which case we would sell to two segments 1 and 2, and we would price the online marketing course for $160, in which case we would also sell to two segments, but in this case to segments 3 and 4. With these individual pricing strategies, we would expect to get a total revenue of $620,000. But what if we bundled? Could we potentially increase our sales? Well, you know the answer by now, so let's just see how. Let's build our bundling strategy. The first step to do that is to calculate how much each segment would be willing to pay for both courses. To do that, we'll add what each individual segment would be willing to pay for each one of the courses. For example, in the case of segment 1, students would be willing to pay $190 for the content writing course, plus $70 for the online marketing course, which means that for both courses, they would be willing to pay $260. This leads us to conclude that segment 1 would be willing to pay $260 for the bundle, segment 2 would be willing to pay $245, segment 3 $255, and finally segment 4 would be willing to pay $230 for both courses. Now the next step we would have to take is to analyze what would happen to our revenue at each one of these 4 potential price points. So if we were to price our bundle for $260, only segment 1 would buy. That would get us a total revenue of 1,000 students times $260, that is $260,000. If you were to price the bundle for $245, 3 segments would buy, segments 1, 2, and 3. That would get us a total revenue of $245 times 3,000 students, that is $735,000. As for a potential price for the bundle of $255, in that case, we would sell to 2 segments, that is, 2,000 students, leading to a total revenue of $510,000. Finally, if we were to price the bundle for $230, all 4 segments would buy, meaning we would expect a total revenue of 4,000 students times $230, that is $920,000. Summing up, if we look at the revenue that we would expect to achieve with each of these bundle prices, we see that the bundle price that maximizes our expected revenue is the $230 one. So if we were to price the bundle for $230, we would expect to achieve a total revenue of $920,000. Now, if you remember that back when we were optimizing the individual course prices, we were expecting to achieve a total revenue of $620,000, we see how the bundling strategy can increase our revenues. But let's take our bundling strategy one step further. As we've just seen, the optimum price for the bundle would be $230. At that price, all 4 segments would buy. But what would happen if we were to select the second best option? In the case of the second best, we would price our bundle for $245. In this case, 3,000 would buy. In fact, the only segment that would be left out would be segment 4. And if we look at this segment students' willingness to pay for each one of the courses, we see that they'd be willing to pay $35 for the writing course and $195 for the marketing course. Which leads us to think, what would happen if we were to sell the bundle for $245 and the marketing course for $195? After all, this segment that would be left out would be the one with the highest willingness to pay for the marketing course. So let's take a second look at our numbers and see what would happen in this particular situation. In other words, let's see what would happen if instead of having a pure bundling strategy, we were to use a mixed bundling one. So let's see how we could further optimize our revenue with a mixed bundling strategy. What would happen if we were to sell the bundle for $245 and the marketing course for $195? Well, we would expect 3 segments to buy the bundle, that is 3,000 students, plus 1 segment, segment 4, to buy the online marketing course for $195. That is, with this new mixed bundling strategy, we would expect our total revenue to increase from $920,000 to $930,000. Which leads us to think, what would happen if we were to move to the next best bundling price, that is, the $255 one? Could we still improve our revenue further? Well, no. Unfortunately not. Let's see why. In this case, segment 2 wouldn't buy the bundle. And because they're only willing to pay $155 for the writing course, if you wanted to sell something to them, you would have to price the content writing course at $155, leading to overall lower sales. In this scenario, we would be selling the bundle to 2,000 students for $255, getting us a total revenue from the bundle side of $510,000. Plus, we would sell the online marketing course for $195,000 to the segment 4 students, as we've seen previously, and we would expect to sell the content marketing course for $155 to the remaining 1,000 students from segment 2. So, with this new strategy, our expected total revenue would go down to $855,000, and therefore it's not a great idea. So at the end of the day, what would our prices look like? Well, we would offer a bundle of both courses for $245. At this price, 3,000 people would be expected to buy the bundle. Then, we would offer the marketing course for $195. At this price, the 1,000 people from segment 4 would be expected to buy. But what about the writing course? What do we do with that one? Well, we'll price it at $195 too. You see, the only segment that wouldn't buy the bundle only values that course at $35. So if we were to price it higher than that, we would expect to have low sales. Therefore, we price it at the same level as the other course, even if we only expect a very small number of people to buy. And why offer a course for $195 that we don't expect people to buy anyway? Well, to start, pricing research isn't an exact science. So, there might be people who would be still willing to buy it for $195. After all, segment 1 clients aren't that far away from that. But most of all, we get to say that for $245, customers are getting a bundle worth $390. That simple. This way, this mixed bundling pricing structure allows us to communicate the bundle has a 37% discount versus the price of the individual courses, and increase sales from $620,000 to $930,000. So, this is a type of strategy that got me to eat fries I didn't particularly like, spend more than if I had purchased only what I really wanted, and feel great about it. And in case you're wondering, if I went to McDonald's today, I'd eat those fries. I mean, it's such a great deal. But what about you? Have you ever been the happiest victim of such a strategy? Let me know all about it in the comments. See you in the next video. Bye.